Your mother's condition is serious. Mrs. Crawford, we must operate right away, the doctor said, echoing across the hospital's antiseptic hallway. As I tried to call Douglas for the 6th time, I tightened my hold on my phone. He was clearly irritated when he eventually responded. Virginia, what is it now? My gut nodded as he snarled. I'm in an important meeting. His voice was icy and familiar. I need you here, Mom, I begged, my voice breaking, as she was hurried into emergency surgery. Overhead, the fluorescent lights hummed while I awaited his answer. I'm afraid I won't be able to, he said. Just take care of it yourself. A big thing is happening. And hung up. At the age of 47, I am Virginia Crawford, and I finally told myself that my marriage was hopeless in St. Luke's Hospital in Birmingham. I was flooded with happy memories of summer afternoons spent at our family's Victorian home. Filled with the aroma of my mother's flowers filling the air from the open windows and the sound of my father's hearty laughter resonating through the elaborate hallways. As I watched the nurses take my mother towards the intensive care unit. For 4 generations, our family had owned that land. I inherited it with my mother when my father went away 3 years ago. Every exquisite molding and creaky floorboard in the ancient house conveyed a tale about our family. And it held immense significance for us. I believe that Douglas used to comprehend that principle. My husband's heart became as cold as granite after a while. Even though he used to spend weekends helping his mother take care of her cherished garden when we were first married 15 years ago. Douglas sent me a text while I was waiting in the intensive care unit. Made my future secure. Sold the estate recently. I'm going to Brazil tonight with someone who truly brings me joy. Goodbye. As I read his post, I felt a weird calmness. Douglas was unaware that I had been observing his every action for several months. My private investigator had brought me up to date on his machinations, including their intentions to leave the country and his affair with his young secretary. I returned one word to the keyboard. Amazing. I felt a strong sense of resolve build as I gazed through the intensive care unit glass at my mother's frail body. What was about to happen was unknown to Douglas. There are instances when letting someone fall into the trap they built for themselves is the finest form of retaliation. This was not always Douglas. 15 years ago, when we first met at a charity banquet in Birmingham, he was unique, compassionate, driven, and truly kind. When he spoke about assisting his clients, his eyes would light up. At the time, he was a junior partner at a law firm. His desire to study and comprehend our family's heritage is evident in the several times he brought coffee to my father during lengthy conversations on estate management. For us, the Victorian estate had been more than a place to live. My great-grandfather had constructed it in 1887, and it served as a reminder of our family's past. Every Sunday afternoon, every Christmas, and every celebration took place inside those walls. I still see my grandma sitting in her favorite library nook, sharing with me tales from earlier generations. With her eyes sparkling with insight, she would say, Virginia, family isn't just about blood. It's about trust and safeguarding what's most important. At first, Douglas showed only minor alterations. He began to spend more time at work and returned home later. Around 5 years ago, my father underwent a full change after his death 3 years ago. He started to challenge all of my financial choices and demanded greater authority over the estate's operations. I realized that a few small items were missing from the house. Family jewelry, antiques, and other artifacts, he said, were only being assessed. In his email 2 months ago, I saw invoices for an upscale Rio de Janeiro property. That's when I brought in the private investigator Juliana. According to her report last week, your spouse has been meeting with several prospective purchasers. In order to prove his complete ownership of the estate, he has been presenting them with fake paperwork. I would have laughed at the irony of it all if it weren't so terrible. Long before he came into our lives, my grandmother had put the estate in an irrevocable trust. But Douglas had spent years attempting to take control of it. Having witnessed comparable circumstances in other affluent households, she had taken action to save our heritage. My phone buzzed once more, this time with another Douglas message. The amount I received for that ancient house would make you appreciate me. It's time to proceed. I put the phone away. my palm resting on my purse and the tattered leather of my grandmother's journal. Inside was the reality that will eventually entirely demolish Douglas's ambitions. As night fell, it felt colder in the ICU waiting room. My nerves were getting frayed since my mother's operation was going longer than planned. At that moment, I received a call from my private investigator, Juliana, with shocking news. With a hurried tone, she remarked, "Virginia, I have something you need to see immediately. Could you please check your email?" My hands trembled as I opened the attachment she emailed. Dozens more pictures showed Douglas visiting upscale real estate firms, dining at fancy restaurants with his young assistant, Angela, and doing diamond shopping at Tiffany's. However, the documents that were clearly visible in some of the pictures gave me a sick feeling. For months, he has been methodically draining your personal accounts. Juliana clarified, the estate sale is only the last step. The majority of your liquid assets have already been moved to offshore accounts by him. When I opened my banking app, I saw that the amount in my personal account was only $842. We had a joint account, but it was empty. My eyes watered at the realization that he had been preparing this for months, if not years. Douglas texted me again, and my phone buzzed. I also looked after the library's ancient, dusty photo albums. We no longer need that emotional clutter. By next week, the purchasers want the residence to be vacant. The picture books. I cherish the priceless memories of my mother. Our family's history spans generations. I was physically sick. My phone displayed the estate's security camera feed, which showed Douglas and Angela packing boxes into his vehicle. As my mother struggled for her life in surgery, they were partying in our family home, laughing and holding champagne glasses. Juliana's words snapped me out of it. Virginia, there's more. For tonight, he has 2 first-class tickets to Rio de Janeiro reserved. Additionally, he has been taping your hospital phone conversations. In order to avoid interfering with the transaction, he needed to confirm that your mother was too sick. I felt the full force of his treachery crashing down on me. In addition to robbing us of our money, he had been waiting for my mother to be most exposed, thinking that I would be too upset over my mother to realize what he was doing. He had timed everything just right. At that moment, the doctor emerged from the doorway. Your mother is steady, Mrs. Crawford. Although the operation went well, she will require a lot of care as she recovers. Sensing the secret papers that would lead to Douglas's downfall, I tightened my grip on my grandmother's journal. He believed he had everything figured out, but he was unaware of what was about to happen. The finest retaliation isn't always about winning. It's about giving your adversary the opportunity to lose everything on their terms. This is Virginia Crawford. Mr. Reynolds. Douglas arranged for you to purchase our estate, am I correct? I spoke steadily, trying to hide the rage that was brewing within me. Yes, Mrs. Crawford. I see. To settle the plans, your spouse said you would be calling. For such a stunning house, $3.2 million is a great deal. I must say, he seemed proud of himself. Have they already transferred the money? Observing my mother's serene sleeping face, I inquired. Yes, only this morning. Your husband was really adamant about getting paid right away. He mentioned a Brazilian investment opportunity that was too good to pass up. I grinned glumly. I advise you to halt the transfer by getting in touch with your bank right now. Mr. Reynolds, as you can see, Douglas isn't really in a position to sell the estate. A lengthy pause ensued. I apologize. But what? There is an irrevocable trust over the property. It is fraudulent to make a sale without the trust administrator's required documents. I heard him take a deep breath. That, in my opinion, would make you an unintentional accomplice in real estate fraud. As Mr. Reynolds digested this information, another Douglas text buzzed through my phone. I just delivered the last set of documents to the purchasers. You ought to be thankful. I got us a fantastic bargain. I am presently taking my actual future to the airport. My focus returned to Mr. Reynolds, who was now stuttering about legal paperwork. I suggested that you thoroughly review your purchasing agreement. You'll undoubtedly discover some anomalies. When he feels like it, my spouse can be inventive with papers. Juliana nodded to make sure everything was in order as she sneaked inside the hospital room at that precise moment. Copies of the trust paperwork and current bank records demonstrating Douglas's systematic embezzlement were in a folder she gave me. Mr. Reynolds' voice had become tense with terror. Mrs. Crawford said, "I just went over the paperwork. The county records don't match these signatures." I calmly said, "No, they wouldn't. I advise you to get in touch with your attorney right now. The FBI will want to talk to you about your involvement in this transaction since they are already involved." Agent Sarah Martinez, who had been building a case against Douglas for the past month, unexpectedly called me. She said, "We're in position at the airport. Your spouse and a woman who fits Angela's description just checked in for their flight to Rio." As I watched Juliana configure her laptop to examine the security cameras, I said, "Perfect timing. The trust administrator is waiting at the gate. But he is unaware of it." I shook my head at Douglas's subsequent text. "I'll be boarding shortly. Where we're heading, you won't ever find us. Have fun living your life in that useless old house." I didn't even try to answer. Instead, I took out the original trust agreement, which had explicit clauses concerning property transfer and fraud prevention. From my grandmother's journal, this document would be the final straw for Douglas. Juliana grinned contentedly as she raised her head from her laptop. Airport security quickly flagged their passports. "Do you want to see the show?" As Douglas and Angela made their way to the international terminal, Juliana's laptop screen displayed the airport security footage. They pulled their pricey matching baggage with an almost smug air of confidence. My mother's sapphire necklace, a generation-old family treasure, caught my eye when Angela wore it. "Crawford, Mrs. through my phone." I heard Agent Martinez's voice crackling. "We've found something unsettling. Your husband did more than simply falsify the documents for the estate sale. He has been operating a sophisticated system with elderly victims and several houses." As she went on, I kept my hand on the hospital bed rail. "He targeted affluent families during medical emergencies in at least 6 such incidents that we have found. While they were in the hospital, he would falsify power of attorney forms." The realization hit me hard. He had spent years honing his plan during all those late office hours and the enigmatic client sessions. I considered the numerous houses, families, and lives he had attempted to ruin. Juliana interrupted, staring at her laptop. "There's more. I have followed the money trail. He has more than one mistress in Angela. Since the outset, she has been his collaborator. A shell corporation, which has been transferring funds from these real estate frauds, employs her." I saw Douglas walk toward the gate on the surveillance feed. He was dressed in the suit I had sewn for him for our anniversary the previous year, which was most likely the final present I would ever give him. He muttered something that made Angela laugh, and she clutched his arm. Then everything occurred simultaneously. 2 suit-clad FBI officers came from one side, with airport security on each side. Mr. Harrison, the trust administrator, came out the other side. In a matter of seconds, Douglas's expression changed from bewilderment to astonishment to fury. "You're not understanding." Juliana's audio stream obviously picked up his speech. "I have permission from my wife to sell the property. I have records," Mr. Harrison stated. "I have documents that have been forged. For more than 2 decades, the Crawford estate has been held in an irrevocable trust. Your wife couldn't approve its sale, even if she wanted to." As Douglas realized his error, I saw his face go white. However, he pushed Angela in the direction of the agents and ran away rather than giving up. My mother's antique bracelet, which I had not even recognized was stolen, was sent skittering across the airport floor when security tackled him after he had taken approximately 10 paces. "Virginia," Juliana spoke urgently, "Douglas just attempted to move an additional $500,000 from your mother's account. If I hadn't frozen it yesterday, Douglas would have sent me one last text message before my phone rang. You believe you're so smart? Verify your mom's health insurance." "I'm sorry." My blood froze. I phoned the hospital's billing department right away. As it turned out, last week Douglas had cancelled my mother's insurance coverage, citing cost-cutting reasons. Her recent operation would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. He had orchestrated everything. He had my mother sent to the hospital without insurance, depleted our finances, sold the estate, and vanished with the proceeds while I was drowning in medical bills. He was unaware that 3 months prior, when Juliana first learned of his plans, I had already moved my mother to my own insurance policy. Sometimes the most effective trap is the one your adversary never anticipates. As I observed Douglas handcuffed on Juliana's laptop screen, Agent Martinez rushed into my mother's hospital room. Her expression was solemn. "Mrs. Crawford, we have to hurry. According to your husband's phone logs, he called a demolition business yesterday. Work on the estate is expected to begin tomorrow morning. It has to do with the buyer's desire to clear the property right now." My heart stopped beating. Our family's memories were not the only things kept at the estate. It included proof of Douglas's other offenses. Last week, I found a secret safe in his study. But I still hadn't figured it out. Juliana remarked, "He's attempting to destroy the evidence." And she started to call her. And records from his previous victims are probably secure in his study. "There's another issue," said Agent Martinez. "Angela has vanished. She has access to all of your banking information and escaped amid the chaos surrounding Douglas's arrest." I retrieved my grandmother's journal and extracted a small key from its spine. I clarified that my grandma did more than simply create the trust. She outfitted the entire estate with a cutting-edge security system. Every paper is safeguarded, and every area is watched closely. Nothing will be accessible to Angela without setting off quiet alarms. Juliana's laptop pinged with an alarm at that moment. The estate's security cameras captured Angela climbing through a window into Douglas's study. She was on her way directly to the safe. "Do we need to deploy officers?" Reaching for her radio, Agent Martinez inquired. As I saw Angela enter the combination for the safe, I yelled, "Wait." My grandmother also installed a failsafe. "Has the safe been accessed without authorization?" Angela gleefully swung open the safe door on screen. She was immediately trapped inside the safe and study door, which both automatically locked. A thin mist, innocuous yet containing an invisible UV dye that would leave anybody in the room marked for weeks, is sprayed from concealed vents. I grinned and told the police to take their time. She will not be leaving. She is now marked with proof of a theft attempt. My phone rang. It was the prospective buyer. "Mr. Reynolds, I recently found out, Mrs. Crawford, that Douglas intended to demolish the estate and construct opulent condominiums. He presented me with fake environmental reports that said the old house was not structurally sound. We have already notified my bank to halt all payments. I'm grateful, Mr. Reynolds. However, you ought to be aware of the demolition firm he used. This is yet another shell company. They would have vanished after stealing your money." After hanging up, Agent Martinez turned to face me. "Douglas's laptop has just been discovered by the FBI. He has comprehensive information on affluent households in 3 states with elderly or sick family members. He intended to make his plan much larger." I glanced at my mom, who was still soundly asleep. And then I glanced back at the camera footage of Angela hammering frantically on the study door. My grandma used to say that greed leads to self-destruction. I don't think Douglas ever understood that the true value of our estate didn't lie in its price tag. It was in the safeguards she included in each and every block. Once more, Juliana's laptop pings. "Vanessa," she said hurriedly, "this is something you must see. Douglas had another plan, and it had already begun." Juliana showed me what appeared to be transfer confirmations by turning her laptop. "Douglas set up an automatic withdrawal of your mother's retirement money. Their scheduled activation time is midnight. Before his assets are frozen by the banks, he is attempting to deplete everything." I grinned as I thought back to the day I had gone to see my grandmother's old buddy at the trust business 3 months prior. I opened the banking app on my own phone and told him to try. "I've already transferred everything to new trust-protected accounts. He's going to transfer funds from fictitious accounts and expose himself to more scam efforts." We saw police officers enter the study where Angela was imprisoned on the surveillance stream. Her hands were now burning brilliant purple beneath the UV rays. But she was still desperately trying to destroy documents from the safe. After looking over the records we had discovered, Agent Martinez informed Mrs. Crawford that this proof extended beyond your estate. Douglas's documents describe a plot that targets several families. We are investigating many charges of conspiracy. theft, and fraud. My mother's eyelids fluttered wide when she moved in her hospital bed. I gave her hand a little squeeze. It's all right, Mom. The estate is secure. Grandmother's strategy was a complete success. With a little smile, she muttered, "Of course it did. The best trap is the one they walk into themselves. Your grandma used to say." Agent Martinez's phone buzzed. Someone found Douglas's go bag in the trunk of his car. It included your grandmother's original will, passports, and cash. He believed he was the sole copy. I took out the actual original will and perused my grandmother's diary one more time. The diary had been safely kept for all these years. "No," I said. "All he had was what we wanted him to locate." I attended the arraignment of Douglas and Angela 2 weeks later while sitting in the courthouse. Prison jumpsuits and dejected looks took the place of their ostentatious attire and smug smiles. The prosecution read out 37 accusations of attempted theft, conspiracy, and fraud. "Your Honor," said Douglas's attorney, "my client was only attempting to safeguard his wife's possessions. The evidence doesn't support that," the prosecutor said, presenting a hefty folder. "We have evidence of Mr. Crawford using complex fraud schemes to target several families during medical difficulties in an effort to take their properties. The UV-marked documents, retrieved from his safe, detail every crime. I considered the other 12 families who had nearly lost everything as a result of Douglas's machinations. They would all receive justice because of the evidence we had obtained." When Douglas and Angela were unable to pay their $5 million bail, the judge remanded them to detention. Douglas turned to sneer at me as they were escorted off. I just patted my grandmother's journal and grinned. The fact that true riches aren't about money had always eluded him. It's about heritage, family, and preserving what's most important. My mother was recuperating nicely in her former room at the estate, surrounded by the artifacts and family portraits we had safeguarded. The home felt more alive than ever, and the garden she loved was flourishing again. I felt my grandmother's knowledge all around me as I sat in her favorite chair in the library. Preserving what really matters while allowing greed to destroy itself can sometimes be a greater victory than winning a battle. When I first viewed my grandmother's journal,